And we're back with another episode of Building the Pride, a show dedicated to the Lions, the Detroit Lions football team. So I am Drew, your host, and I am once again joined by my co-host, Mike. Mike, how are you?
Fantastic, Drew. How about yourself?
Well, Mike, this week I am full of grit.
Full of grit. Yes, bring it.
Yeah.
And why might that be, Drew?
Well, we're going to start the NFL season this week, Michael, and it's a wonderful thing, and I'm completely excited about it. So, our Detroit Lions will head down to Kansas City, Missouri, to take on the defending Super Bowl champion Chiefs in Arrowhead Stadium. Super Bowl or bust kind of season, says Donkey Kong / Mark.
So, that's right on. Super Bowl or bust.
Now, here's what I don't understand. Mark has just posted in chat, but our little big brother eye that tells, oh, there it goes, tells us how many people are watching, said 0. And I never understand that. Makes me think that it's not accurate. But Mark's right. So we have talked in previous episodes about what we think is going to happen in the season, and we did our schedule review and our predictions on the team record and that kind of thing. And I made an offhand comment at the time, like, this is fun, but it's completely inaccurate because what a roster is going to look like, come the regular season. And we already have roster issues with the Kansas City Chiefs that could very well affect the game. And we're going to talk about that on this show a little bit later, I think. So.
Yeah, I guess, we can start a little bit. We typically will start with news and notes around the NFL. And as far as the Lions and the Lions fandom is concerned, I think the biggest news is surrounding the Chiefs, our Week 1 opponent.
Yeah.
With outside of Patrick Mahomes, who's the best player on the planet, like their other best offensive player, Travis Kelce, was it hypoextending his knee?
He hyperextended his knee today.
Questionable, right? So he's questionable. Yeah. And their best defensive players holding out.
It's really good.
Those odds, those percentages keep going up for us. The fewer of their best players that play.
Yeah. So, from the practice reports that I've seen so far on Tuesday for both teams, the Chiefs, no Chris Jones due to holdout, no Kelce due to a hyperextension of his knee, although they say that his ACL is fine. That's what I've heard so far. It doesn't mean that he's playing. It just means that they don't believe that he has torn his ACL. Now, I did see someone from ESPN, I think it was ESPN, Albert Breer or whoever, whatever outfit he works for, said that they did. I think it was Austin. I can't remember his last name. Reeves.
Say it with confidence, and then everybody will believe you.
Austin, somebody from The Ringer. He used to work for PFF. He came out with a little hyperextension, the last several hyperextensions for knees, and how long people sat out. And I think it was like 4 or 5 players, and they all sat out somewhere between like 3 and 4 weeks. So this, of course, could be different. You don't know what Travis Kelce his knee looks like, but he is also 34, I believe, today. I believe today is his birthday.
Oh, happy birthday. Yikes.
Yeah. I hate Travis Kelce, so I don't care about wishing him a happy birthday. But I think if I had to put money on it, I think it's probably likely that we don't see him at all, or much, on Thursday. I mean, it's not a lot of time between now and when they're going to be playing. It's only tomorrow's walkthrough.
Yeah.
And then Kadarius Toney has a knee issue. He may not play. And L'Jarius Sneed, their top corner, is also dealing with something. He may not play. And if any combination of those guys don't play, it only helps the Lions' chances of winning this game.
Yeah, I agree. Like going into the game, I'm like, they won the Super Bowl for a reason, right? We didn't make the playoffs for a reason. Just the fact that that dynamic is in place. You're picking Patrick Mahomes and the Super Bowl champs. But that said, I mean, our defense has gotten better. Our secondary is the first actual game they've all played together, so that was kind of a question mark for me. But if they don't have to stop Jason or Travis Kelce, and they don't have Jones just ramming through the line, I think it makes everything that we want to do more likely to happen. So instead of being I figured we'd lose by 10. Instead of being a 10-point loss, I think it's closer to flip a coin now with those two guys out.
Yeah, I'm closer to where you are now than I was this time last week. So
yeah.
I saw that Vegas had the Lions as a 6.5-point underdog, which I thought was a little bit much. I wonder tomorrow at this time if that's not like 4.5 or 3.5, getting closer to even money. Just because we don't know, right? So if Kelce doesn't play, that's a big deal. If Kadarius Toney doesn't play, that's a lot of additional. Oh, Mark says it's down to 5.5. Okay. Oh, Zakwa confirmed. So, okay, guys.
That's good enough for publication.
So we're seeing it. We're seeing it start to move, right? Okay. So, Kadarius Toney, that's a lot of big playability.
Yep.
I don't want to have him and Mahomes teamed up to make those kinds of plays.
Yep.
Chris Jones, I think that the running game, the passing, I mean, Jared Goff he's not immobile, but like I also don't want Chris Jones running around him, batting at the ball either, and so the play action game just works a little bit better if he's not in there, and then if L'Jarius Sneed's not locked up on St. Brown, that's a little bit, all those tiny margins, you add those up, and like we talked about what a win for this team on the road, week 1 against the defending champions would mean for this team. And like, to be honest, I'm starting to hope. And
you poor bastard.
I know.
You should know better by now.
I know, right?
But so am I.
They do this to you. Even when it was the previous administrations, they do this to you.
Yeah.
But like, if this team wins this game and they get that boost of confidence, I really do think the sky's the limit. It could be an extremely special season. So
I agree. And I will say, like, one of the things I talked to my brother over the weekend about the Lions game, and what he's a big DraftKings guy, and he was going to take the Chiefs, giving up the points, right? Just because Patrick Mahomes said like a week ago, hey, I remember the game last year. They beat us for like 3.5 quarters. And we were lucky to come out with a win. I have not forgotten about that. I am going to treat these guys the way that they deserve. Like, we're not overlooking them. And when you have a guy that's as talented as Mahomes is and driven as he is, if he's already upset with how you treated him last year, he's not going to let that happen again. There's a lot of like, oh my God, this can't be good. But I never root for anybody other than Claude Lemieux to get an injury. The Red Wings, he's the guy that crushed Draper from behind, broke his face. He's the only guy I've ever rooted for an injury. But anyway, I would never root for Kelce to have an injury or Kadarius Toney or Mahomes. But hey, if it happens naturally and it benefits the Lions, it is what it is. And we'll take every margin percentage we can get.
Yeah, absolutely. So one little thing about Chris Jones, I was just on X, formerly known as Twitter, and I saw this from Albert Breer. Chris Jones is now over $2 million in fines. He walked away from a $500,000 workout bonus, and each game check is worth just over $1 million. So he'll lose one of those each week he stays away. Can't say Jones isn't putting his money where his mouth is. So what I read into
just
that,
got a new extension.
correct. So like what I read into that is that if he's actually willing to lose money and he's already up to $2 million, I don't know that one more week is the like deal breaker in that. If he had
said that
lost,
he would be willing to hold out until week 8.
Yeah, so week 8, think about that. That would be something like $10 million that he's willing to lose, right? So
because he wants close to 30. Actually, I think the way that it was, the last thing I saw was he wanted halfway between essentially what Aaron Donald got and what he has now, which was around $25.7 million. And he's at 20, something along those lines. So, and of course that's per year, right? So he's willing to give up $10 million to make an extra 5.7 for the next 4 years. He's still making more than he's losing in that. So, you know what? More power to you. You're only in the NFL for so long. Make the money that you feel like you deserve, especially if it benefits the Lions by you not being around for week 1.
Exactly. So he's a really great player. I mean, like,
outside of Donald, he was the best defensive player in the NFL last year.
Him not being there, I don't know that we can actually quantify what that means.
I saw the pressure rate, the opposing team's pressure rate when he was on the field was first in the NFL. The quarterback pressure rate when he was not on the field was 28th in the NFL last year. So they essentially went from the best, highest pressure defense to the 28th when he was resting plays. Now, granted, some of those plays may be, non-pass rush situations. Maybe they were first. I don't know what it is, but like just the difference between him being on the field and not being on the field, being first and 28th, is pretty impressive. So there is one other contract situation that I figured we would want to talk about, since it does also have something to do with the Lions. And that is TJ Hockenson.
Oh, yeah.
Resetting the tight end market.
The son of a bitch.
With a $17.1 AAV, $17.1 million average annual value. More than Kelce, more than Waller, more than Andrews, more than Kittle, more than every other tight end in history. I am so glad we didn't get saddled with that contract.
Yeah, I mean,
yeah.
So when we discussed TJ Hockenson when he was on the team last season, and we were talking about my thoughts were he was going to want a deal near the top of the market, right? And I was thinking like, well, if he doesn't get like Travis Kelce or Darren Waller money, George Kittle, Kelce, even like I thought he was going to get something closer to what Dallas Goedert got from the Eagles or what Mark Andrews got from the Ravens, and that was like in the $14 million range. And depending how you want to look at the contract, whether it's with all the incentives included or just like base pay without the incentives being reached, OTC over the Caps got him listed as the second highest paid tight end in the NFL behind Darren Waller currently. I don't think that he's worth that, because I don't think that he's the second best tight end in the NFL, but he was the next guy up, right?
Yeah.
So I think what TJ's contract does well is to demonstrate when we are talking about the next guy up, this is what we mean. It's not the team is going to pay you where they feel you rank amongst other players at your position. If you're the next guy up, and you can demand it, there's somebody out there that's going to give you that money. And I think that we did well to say we don't want to. I'll give you this about Sam Laporta, right? He's a second-round pick. They're not paying Sam Laporta anywhere near what TJ Hockenson. Sam Laporta is going to earn over the lifespan of his rookie contract what TJ Hockenson is worth in the first year of this extension.
Yeah.
If he gets that, like that is good value. And Sam Laporta doesn't need to be TJ Hockenson in order for that to be a good value. Yeah. So now here's the next thing I'll bring up inside this same kind of theme. Jonah Jackson. Okay.
Yep.
Jonah Jackson, good player. I like Jonah Jackson. Got a good value for him. 3rd round pick out of Ohio State. He's been a healthy, positive, good player on a good line. But I don't know that you need to re-sign Jonah Jackson. And I'll probably take shit for that because I would let Jonah Jackson walk out the door at the end of his deal, and I would simply spend a 2nd or 3rd round pick on his replacement.
Yeah.
Because I don't want to have to pay Jonah Jackson top 5 money at the guard position, which is starting to creep into the $20 million range. We have 2 guards in the NFL who have signed contracts, Quentin Nelson and the kid from Atlanta, Lindstrom.
Yep.
Who have signed contracts $20 million a year. And I don't want to be in that range for a guard in the same way that I don't want to be $17 million for a tight end.
Yeah,
I like him.
But yeah, I like Hawk. Like you and I have had these conversations about Hockenson before, and I always brought up the P word, potential. Right, he's got potential to be really good. He just never really showed it. He was injured. He was not very consistent. He'd have a game with 130 yards and 2 touchdowns. In the next game, he'll have 2 catches for 16 yards, and he's not even a great pass blocker. He's not even a good blocker. So there's a lot of inconsistency there. But one of the interesting things is they had I'd seen it on one of the social medias, and they talked about resetting the contract, and I said something to the effect of, all of us Lions fans are so happy for TJ Hockenson and so happy that Minnesota put that much of their salary toward resigning a guy who has been okay, nothing special, but not worth that kind of money. And I love seeing a division rival essentially put themselves at a disadvantage with their cap when it comes to building the rest of their team because they are overpaying for mediocrity. And I got a lot of flack from some Vikings fans about, well, he was the number 2 fantasy tight end. And I'm like, okay, but Brock Wright and Shane Zylstra had a combined 8 touchdowns after he was gone. They outpointed him. No, they might not have had as many yards. I think he had 650 yards to their combined 300-ish. But touchdowns matter, right? And we replaced his production with 2-3 guys, if you include James Mitchell. We replaced all of his production and then some, and we saved a ton of money. So and then of course we went out and signed or drafted Sam Laporta in the second round, right?
Yeah,
he was
top of the second.
Yeah, right. So we go out and we draft him. The only way that what we've done is wrong is if TJ Hockenson outplays Sam Laporta by $14 million in value. I don't see that happening. I just don't see him outplaying him by a Darren Waller quality, right? Or a Mark Andrews. He has to be that much better to go, you know what? They did the right thing and we did the wrong thing. Because I guarantee you, Sam Laporta, even in his rookie year, will be, assuming health, at least 70% of what Hawk was.
Yeah.
But 1/10 the cost.
Right, exactly. And so Funky makes a good point here. The Vikings now have $25 million spent on their 2 tight ends. So the guys that he's referencing are, of course, Hockenson, and then Josh Oliver, who's making 7 a year now. So I'm going off OTC numbers, and I'm not sure where Funky's getting the 25. But like, whether that's incentives, like one of us is representing incentives and one isn't. I showed at 23.5, $1.5 million, not a big deal, right?
Right.
The point remains.
Rounding.
Yeah. It's a solid point. Like, you are paying for that position. I imagine you have to be paying at the top of the market for like your tight end room, right? And like, this is the Vikings' near future. You have to pay Justin Jefferson. And if he doesn't make $30 million a year, so Funky, I'm on OTC and they say 7 right now, but maybe he's 8 in like his next season's cap number. I don't know, but we're close enough. It's not an important distinction. Like, your point is well founded. So they are going to pay Justin Jefferson $30 million plus a year. There's no doubt in my mind that he's going to demand the highest wide receiver contract in the history of the NFL until the next guy. But like, then you have Christian Darrisaw, their left tackle. He's coming up. He was the class prior to Penny's. So he's going to get, I think, he's going to get paid. So the Vikings, for their rebuild, are all like, Detroit got their rebuild and they started drafting core pieces. The Vikings had core pieces and then started their rebuild. And so now the problem is that their cap is going to be dedicated largely to players the new regime did not draft. Jefferson, Darrisaw, they traded for Hockenson. I guess that's on them. But like, I'm just wondering if you've got enough money.
You also need to do something with a quarterback position.
Right. And so like, here's my thinking is that I'll put a big, we should have like we should have like some kind of list of like our bets as to what's going to happen in the future in the NFL, because this time next year, I think Kirk Cousins is a San Francisco 49er. And Kyle Shanahan finally has the guy that like his offense is completely built for. And that's Kirk Cousins. Kirk Cousins is the definition of what Kyle Shanahan wants on a quarterback. So I would be shocked.
We should have that be a new channel in the Discord.
Yeah, sure. Why not?
Like prediction type of things, and then we can go 100%. Back, and I think it'd be fun. All right.
And then people can be like, Drew, do you remember when you said this and you were totally wrong? And I was like, yeah, it's like 75% of the stuff I say. But like every once in a while, you get one right. It's like the same methodology that gets people to continue to play golf. It's like I just spent 18 holes, like just absolutely playing terribly. But I had one shot that was really good, so I'm going to go back and do it again.
I'll do that. I'll be like 12 over par after 7 holes, then I'll go par, and I'm like, love this game.
Oh, this is so good. Why did I ever not do this? Right.
Yeah.
So I think what's going to happen here is that Minnesota is going to commit to this core of young players, and then they're going to go all in on some quarterback, whether that's on free agency or what I'm betting, a massive trade up for somebody like Drake May.
Yeah.
From UNC. So I think it's going to be super interesting to watch what they do over the next 2 seasons with their roster. So TJ Hockenson fucking called it, bro. I mean, like,
it's I'm happy that, you know what, I'm happy he got paid, right? He's a good dude. He's a hard worker. He's a good tight end. Cool. Good on you. I'm just glad it wasn't us.
There's one other signing that I think bears witnessing, or at least like mentioning, when it comes to the Detroit Lions, and that is Dallas Cowboys right tackle Terrence Steele. Terrence Steele got 5 years, $82.5 million with $23.5 guaranteed. That's $16.5 a year, and that's not even the top of the right tackle market. But like, he was a UDFA signing.
Yeah.
And he just, I don't know where that puts him on the whole situation here. Terrence Steele, he's now 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. That puts him 9th, 16.5.
Not bad for undrafted.
Yeah, absolutely. Like that's the dude that I'm clapping for. Like, way to go, dude! Like you got invited to camp and you flipped it into this. But if he's getting 16 and a half, Penny Sewell is going to get 24 a year. It's just Penny Sewell is going to be the top paid right tackle in football whenever they decide to extend him.
Yep.
So
I totally agree.
Yeah. So we got some
all
big
right. So the other one I want to quickly touch on, just because I am a fan, Cooper Kupp, hamstring issue. That's a bummer. So he's likely going to be out for at least week 1. I love watching him play. Just when you flip on the game and you're just like, all right, where's number 10, and what is he going to do to those defenders? It's 3rd and 7 on a critical, deep in the fourth quarter. It's going to Cooper Kupp. Let's see how they defend him. Oh, they couldn't? God, that was fun to watch. So I was a little bummed to see that he's got a hammy issue.
Yeah, what I heard was he was getting a second opinion or another opinion on the hamstring, and that's usually not indicative of like you suiting up, lacing up to go out on Sunday. So I agree with you. I love watching Cooper Kupp play football. It's just a lot of fun.
Yeah.
And I do hope that he gets healthy, but I want him to get healthy and then play, not go out and play and try and get healthy. So I don't think the Rams are doing much this season. So be careful.
They're pretty young. They're pretty young. Something like 38 of their 53 players are all rookies.
Did you hear what Kelly Stafford said on her podcast?
Yeah, that Matt's having trouble trying to figure out how to lead those guys because he just can't get connected. Which the statement itself, 100%. I mean, it's you're a different generation, right? You're 10, 12 years older than these guys. It is tough to lead people if you don't build those connections and relationships. And sometimes you do wonder, like, how do I, build that relationship with this guy that's, 12 years younger than me, where after practice, they want to pop on their phone and, send a text to a buddy or play Clash of Clans or some shit. And that's just not Matt. So I'm sure, I know Kelly took a lot of crap for bringing that up. Matt Stafford took a lot of crap for saying it, but I get it. I don't think that he was saying that he is incapable of making connections or he's not trying, but it's a challenge for any veteran that's, 10, 12 years older than some of these young kids coming in. So I don't think he'll have a problem leading those guys, but totally see his point. So the other piece of there's many pieces to the preview issue or episode for Building the Bride here. One of the things I wanted to bring up was award predictions, whether it's the Lions awards, who's going to be our MVP, who's going to be the NFL MVP, offensive rookie of the year, defensive rookie of the year, player of the years, all that kind of stuff. So we didn't really get a chance to go over this before the show, so this will be all off the cuff. But who needs preparation?
Where we thrive.
They don't pay us enough for preparation.
They don't pay us anything.
Because there is no they and there is no pay. So
that's correct.
You get what you get. So I guess, what are your thoughts? We'll start with the Lions.
Yeah.
Who is going to be our offensive player of the year?
There's only one candidate here, as far as I'm concerned, and I don't want to hear anything to the contrary. And this is Jared Goff's award. The team will go or not as Jared Goff goes.
Yeah.
He is the quarterback. Doesn't matter. He touches the ball every play. He's the most important player on offense, and it's not even close. Jared Goff, if he plays well, he's the MVP. Doesn't matter. So
there's a difference between an MVP and an offensive player of the year. Cooper Kupp can tell you that because he should have won MVP and offensive player of the year, and fucking Rodgers got MVP.
The MVP award should just be for quarterbacks because they're head and shoulders above everybody else. Offensive player of the year, whatever, that should just be, if you're a quarterback, you're not allowed to win it.
Yeah,
so
I agree.
by that definition, the MVP is Jared Goff. Doesn't matter to me what he does. He's your most important. You can't afford to not have Jared Goff out there. Everyone else, you might be able to make the case that there's no other player that you're just like, we absolutely must have this player at this position or the whole thing doesn't work. Jared Goff's the only player that meets that definition.
Yeah.
Offensive player of the year, I think that this is a 2-horse race, and it's between Amon-Ra St. Brown and Jahmyr Gibbs as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah.
So
totally agree.
If Jahmyr Gibbs has a role in this offense, and to listen to Dan Campbell and Ben Johnson talk, they are going to use Jahmyr Gibbs in a way the NFL has quote unquote not previously seen.
Yeah.
So if that is the case and is successful, it's Jahmyr Gibbs. And if it's not that, and Amon-Ra St. Brown has the same kind of season he's had the last 2 years, it's him.
Yeah.
So
I saw a quote from Campbell saying something. I guess they asked him like, "Well, where's Gibbs going to line up?" And I think he said something to the effect of, "Well, we don't plan on lining him up at punter."
Right.
If that tells you anything.
So first of all, to me, almost with Dan Campbell, I'm like, they're going to line that son of a bitch up at punter.
Right.
It's going to be 4th and 4, and Jahmyr Gibbs is going to go back there to take the punt.
Yeah, and everybody's going to be like, what do we do,
everyone's
guys?
Like, oh,
Coach!
Shit, what's going to happen? And then they're going to direct snap it to Montgomery, who's like the up back or whatever, and he's going to go for 60. I literally can see Dan Campbell. One of my biggest problems with Dan Campbell in year one was just like he was going for it on what I would consider like not non-traditional situations, like 4th and mid, or whatever, a lot. And I was like not here for it at all. But like now you're going to get 3 or 4 fake punts a year from Dan Campbell. And is it Dave Phipp, the special teams coordinator?
I don't remember.
But like those guys are aggressive and that's in their wheelhouse, And so like if he comes out and says Jahmyr Gibbs is not going to be lining up at punter, if I was a defensive coordinator in the NFC North, I'd be like, these sons of bitches are crazy enough to go do that.
Right. We need to have a plan in case this happens.
Right.
I just need to spend 30 minutes thinking about what do we do if we see Gibbs lined up, and we will tell our boys this and like just hope it doesn't happen.
Yeah. So it's always hard when someone says like, we've come up with something that no one's ever seen before. I have a hard time picturing what that could look like because no one's ever seen it, right?
Right.
So I have no idea. Hey, Crimson.
What's up, Crimson?
I have no idea what that could be, but if they pull it off, and I certainly expect Ben Johnson, if there's somebody in the NFL that could do it, I would think Ben Johnson would be the guy to do it. He very well could not only be the Lions offensive player of the year, he might be the offensive rookie of the year. So I think that's
I was going to get to that.
Well, I figured
offensive rookie of the year for the NFL, is that potentially Gibbs?
Well,
I mean, he'll be ours, right? I mean,
he'll be ours. Yeah, there's no doubt in my mind. But like, to me, I'm thinking with the way the offense is set up, I would be hard pressed to think that it's not going to be Bijan Robinson in Atlanta. That is a team that wants a Bijan Robinson, is designed an offense for a Bijan Robinson, and is going to give that kid every opportunity to be the rookie of the year. And I think that Bijan's workload in Atlanta is going to far surpass Gibbs's production in Detroit. Now,
wasn't Atlanta the number 1 rushing team last year?
They were. And here's the thing that I think closes the gap. If Detroit makes the playoffs and Atlanta's terrible, it's probably Gibbs.
Yeah.
But if Atlanta wins their division and makes the playoffs and it's close, I think it's probably Robinson.
Yeah.
So because I think the narrative plays a huge role in like these offseason awards. And if the team that came from nowhere, the Atlanta Falcons, wins their possibly worst division in the NFL and makes the playoffs, I think that's a better story than what the Detroit Lions have for Gibbs. So
Yeah.
he's going to have to split carries with Montgomery. So
we kind of talked about offensive rookie of the year for both the Lions and the NFL. We talked about our MVP. What do you think? Is it Mahomes, the NFL MVP? You think?
I will not bet or pick against Patrick Mahomes until I'm definitively proven wrong about him.
Yeah.
So I'm thinking I've got another 5 to 10 years of betting on Patrick.
Yeah, and it seems like that's going to be the highest odds throughout that time.
We'll wait until Caleb Williams gets in the NFL, but I'm pretty sure that Patrick Mahomes is going to be a legit GOAT candidate by the time he's all said and done.
Yeah, I mean, he's already got a Hall of Fame resume, right?
100%.
5 years.
He's 100% Hall of Fame.
2 Super Bowl victories, 3 Super Bowl appearances. Every
NFL
year he's
MVP.
been in the NFL, he's been in the championship game. MVPs, both. It's just, I mean, it's absurd. Like he could retire now and be in the Hall of Fame.
Watch out for Trevor Lawrence. Okay, Funky, we're going to write that one down. I like Trevor Lawrence a lot, but it would take, I think, a Herculean effort to be mentioned in the same breath as Patrick Mahomes. Here's the thing about Patrick Mahomes that I think really plays heavily into like greatest ever kind of talk. He's definitively the best quarterback in his own era, and it's not close.
Yeah.
You know, like there are other good quarterbacks in the league: Burrow, Josh Allen, Justin Herbert. I think it's clear that he's a notch above those guys, and like that's the kind of thing.
Burrow could be the backup candidate.
Yeah,
like he'd be my non-Patrick Mahomes candidate.
If you're any other NFL team and you can't have Patrick Mahomes and you have Joe Burrow, you're completely happy with your situation.
Yeah,
so that's fine.
So, what do you think about NFL Offensive Player of the Year? I'm asking the guys in the chat too. So, Funky, who do you think? Crimson? Offensive Player of the Year.
I don't think a tight end can do it. I don't think a running back can do it. So I think it has to be a wide receiver. And I want to say Jamar Chase, but he just has to split targets with a pretty good wide receiving core.
Yeah.
So I'll pick Deebo Samuel.
Interesting. Not JJ.
No. Well, I think that San Francisco will win more games than Minnesota will.
Yeah.
And I don't think what you get. That's a good point. I don't think you get the kind of recognition or votes if you're like a 500 team compared to a team that might challenge for the NFC title game, right? So
yeah, I don't have enough faith in Brock Purdy to think that's going to be a thing. Like I think
he can hand the ball off to him
Jefferson's gonna. I think it's going to be Chase. He's my number one guy just because I think he's on a better team. You know, second best quarterback in the NFL, right? Like, and I think they're going to win a bunch. So I think he's my number one, but my number two is Justin Jefferson, just because I think he is the best player. He has a good quarterback and better than like Deebo Samuel or some of these other guys. But like, I think it's Chase.
I'm with you. I think Justin Jefferson's the best wide receiver in football, but I think that I don't know that means that he's going to be the offensive player of the year. Unfortunately, it'd be nice if he was. So,
what about defensive player of the year? First, let's talk about the Lions.
Sure.
And then we'll talk about NFL.
In the NFL, I think the defensive player this year is Micah Parsons. I think that he had a real case last year to be the defensive player of the year. If he has anything close to what he had last year, and I have no reason to expect he won't be better than he was last year.
Right.
I think there is a little bit kind of like, well, he probably should have got it last year, so we're going to vote for him this year kind of feelings. And if he has a better year, I just think that he probably just runs away with it. So I would put money on Micah Parsons for the NFL Defensive Player of the Year.
Yeah, I've got him and Aaron Donald And I think sometimes when you are as good as Aaron Donald, you sometimes then get overlooked because that expectation is already raised as, oh, you're one of the greatest players in defense in history, regardless of position. You're probably top 3, top 4 all time, and possibly even number 1. So I think that bar is so high that you have to really surpass it to get some of those votes. But on the other hand, sometimes you get those votes just because you are who you are. So some of that kind of evens out. But Micah Parsons, I think, is going to make more splash plays, like splashy plays when it comes to highlight reel type of things. There's not a ton of Aaron Donald, like really splashy highlight reel. He just runs fucking through people and gets to the quarterback. He's not, I don't know. He doesn't have that kind of splash to him, where I think Parsons does. Being a Cowboy and the inordinate amount of media that they get down there, I think it definitely helps out Parsons. So I can definitely see Parsons. I can see Aaron Donald as well. Those are my top 2 candidates.
So the thing that holds Donald back this year to me is I think the Rams are going to be bad. And I don't think that like a 6 or 7 win team, regardless of how good you are, is going to get the defensive player of the year, the MVP of the league, that kind of stuff. So, and you and I differ a little bit on our opinion of how the Rams season is going to go. But if I'm right, he'd have to have the single greatest season again for a defensive tackle.
Again.
You're
right.
And like he's already in discussion for maybe the greatest defensive tackle, if not the greatest defensive player in NFL history ever. So I mean, I do believe that like voter fatigue is a real thing when it comes to these kinds of awards. And it feels to me like people are going to be like, well, we have a meteoric rise in, Micah Parsons kind of stuff. So I'm betting on Parsons. Now for the Lions, I think the easy answer here would be Jack Campbell, but I'm going to say Brian Branch. By the end of the season, I think Brian Branch is going to look like, if not be, maybe the best defensive player on this team. I love Brian Branch. I think Brian Branch is.
So are you talking about defensive rookie of the year or defensive player of the year for the Lions?
The second one.
Oh, so you're over Hutch.
Listen, I love Aiden Hutchinson. Love him.
Yeah.
I'm wondering if the amount of attention he's going to generate is going to be detrimental to the kind of statistics you need to be the defensive player of the year. You're not going to get defensive player of the year for demanding a double team every other play, unfortunately. So I think Brian Branch is good enough. I would have taken Brian Branch at 18. If I was the GM of the Detroit Lions and Brian Branch was sitting there at 18, I would have just drafted Brian Branch right then. And they got, in my opinion, exceptionally good fortune that he was there in the 3rd round. And there's been no explanation as to why he fell.
Yeah, I haven't seen anything.
None.
Have you seen the behind-the-scenes video of the draft room when they were talking to, they being Brad Holmes and Coach Campbell, were talking with Sheila about Brian Branch and trying to trade up, and then that whole process, calling. They traded up with Green Bay, I believe, right? And Green Bay wanted 152 and our 48 to move up to 42, and they're like, no, we'll go 159. They ended up making the deal, and to get it. I just thought they're like, he's still available. They're like dumbfounded that he was still available there, and it almost like they fell off the radar, and they went, we got an opportunity to move up here, guys. And it was actually a really cool video. I love behind the scenes shit anyway. So
yeah, you do. You're a fan of that stuff. So
I was like, I don't know if you ever seen the TV show How It's Made. I don't even care what's the three things that they kind of talk about those episodes. I'm like, oh, how do they make basketballs, or whatever? How do they make pickup trucks, school buses, ambulances, and shit? I don't care, but it's interesting.
So curious.
So I've got Hutch as our MVP because I think that we're going to get enough other rushing from Houston and Okwara and some of those other guys. I think are going to be good enough where they can't always double team Hockenson, and I think he's going to continue to pile up numbers. So
if that's the case, the only way I can see that happening is if James Houston becomes a big enough problem. The defensive coordinators are like, you have to pay attention to this guy as well. And I think we're 6 to 8 games into the season before defensive coordinators would say, if you don't block this guy, and the Lions are giving him a lot more snaps than they did last year, and those are rushing the passer snaps, I don't know that someone would take their attention away from Hockenson, who's on the field all the time. Like he was on the field as much for that defense last year as any other player. So more than most of them, to be honest. So I don't think that the Lions rushing the passer by committee is good enough to warrant one-on-one coverage for Hutch, which is why I think that he's going to see a stagnant stat line this year.
I can see that. That.
I don't believe that Brian Branch was the first safety off the board in the 3rd round. Now, I can't name another safety that came off the board prior to that, but if you give me a minute, I'll go look up the draft real quickly.
Yeah. So while you're looking up the draft there, I think Brian Branch is probably our defensive rookie of the year. And I think he's definitely got an opportunity to be our actual just defensive player of the year, not just defensive rookie of the year. The dude's special. And he's been playing really well in preseason. All of that stuff, all the comments and analysis has been really good for him. So I would expect him to really kind of ball out. And to be honest, it's actually kind of great because CJ Gardner-Johnson, he's only on a 1-year deal. And I think it's perfect to transition because we got Tracy Walker and we've got Kirby Joseph and now we've got Brian Branch and we've got a ton of depth there. So I think that allows us to let him walk at the end of this year if we need to.
So a tip of the hat to Crimson. Brian Branch was the first safety off the board at 45. So
nice.
Yeah. Oh, he was not a 3rd round pick.
Second
round pick. They traded up in the 2nd for him. Do you have to double team Broderick Martin? I mean,
no, I think he's saying you have to double team Hockenson, and then you also have Houston and Broderick Martin. I think is what he's saying there, but I'm not sure because there is comments that could prove me wrong. So Crimson,
maybe
are you saying you got to double team all of those?
Because that's not. I don't think that. I hope that what he's saying is you got to double team Hutch, and then Houston and Martin would be a pain, one-on-one or whatever. But they certainly drafted Broderick Martin to be that kind of guy that can 2-gap and throw a dude away and then go and get the ball carrier or that kind of guy. And he's right. I think Crimson has a point where it's these 3 guys are in the game. They all have different but complementary skill sets. Could be a real problem. Hope that's the case.
Yeah.
I have a lot more faith in Houston than I do in Martin currently. I'll wait to withhold judgment until I see Broderick Martin's rookie season. So
on the NFL side, defensive rookie of the year.
Rookie of the year?
Yep.
You're gonna hate it. You're gonna absolutely. I think you're gonna hate it.
All right.
So I think that the majority of people will say Will Anderson from Houston because he's going to get an opportunity to rush the passer. I'm going to say Jalen Carter.
I'm not going to hate it. I think you're probably right. He's kind of my guy as well.
Yeah. Jalen Carter is going to play some number of snap next to Jordan Davis. 20 snaps a game or whatever. And like, I can't think, I mean, like, I don't want to play Chris Jones and Aaron Donald, but if I have to be like the worst 2 defensive tackles to face in the NFL is probably that one.
Yeah.
And the worst 1 defensive tackle would be Chris Jones or Aaron Donald. And it's probably really close depending on any other defensive tackle that's playing next to those guys. But I actively do not want, if I was a guard and centers on any team that they're going to play, like if I was a guard and center in the NFC East this year or for the next 10 years, I would be like,
son of a bitch. I'm not looking forward to this Sunday.
This is 2 times a year with these guys. And like, I don't have a ton of love for Jordan Davis because his snap count is so low. He just can't be on the field for 30 snaps a game. And that's half of the defensive snaps nowadays, So like, if he's only playing a third of the game, I'm sorry, but like, he's still immensely disruptive when he's in there for those 20. And if he can get to 30 snaps, okay, that's a real problem for people. But Jalen Carter is not going to be a 20 to 30 snap a game guy, even with their rotation. And the news out of Philly's camp so far is that he's just throwing people around like they're nothing, and it's like it was, they had a joint practice with somebody this preseason, and that team had, I cannot remember who it was, but it was like a legitimate starter on the interior offensive line. And Jalen Carter just threw him aside like he was a child. Just threw him aside. Beast. And like, I look at that and I'm just like, oh God, like he's going to do that, 8 to 10 times this season. It's just going to be sick. So
yeah, he'll be one of those guys that's going to be fun to watch, I think.
Yeah. Hashtag fun to watch.
So, yeah. I do think Will Anderson will probably be the runner up though.
I think he's just going to have so many opportunities to rush the passer that, if he gets like 850 snaps, and you get, I don't know, 75 pressures, and I think that he could probably get double-digit sacks, especially in that division this season. Yeah. Like, I think that you probably have to put his name on the ballot. So,
yeah,
that was still such a bad trade for Houston. That was so bad.
So comeback player of the year, I don't think anybody's it's going to be Damar Hamlin, who died on the field, comes back. He just plays 1 snap, and it's just him, right?
Yeah, he made their 53-man roster. We'll see what his playing time looks like. But, like, I have a hard time believing that the NFL is not just going to be like, are there any other candidates? No? Oh, okay, Damar Hamlin. Like,
yeah,
I think that Damar Hamlin's a fine guess. That's a good wager. I think I might even put some money on that.
There were a few guys that got hurt last year that could come back. Stafford was out for half the season. He could come back, but the team's just not going to be good enough, I don't think, around him to elevate him to the league's comeback player of the year. Cooper Kupp got hurt last year as well, also on the Rams for the same reason. I don't think he's going to end up there. There are a few others as well. The type of injury, the serious health issue that Hamlin went through, I think if he just makes the field, it's kind of by default like, oh, you broke a leg, you tore an ACL. Oh, did you die? No? All right, it's not you then. Did you literally have your heart stop on the field, have to be resuscitated? If you can't beat that, it's not you, right? Like, I just don't see that happening. So to me, he's like the guy. So
yeah,
I think that's coach of the year.
Dan Campbell.
You think Dan Campbell's going to win coach of the year?
I would give it pretty good odds. I mean, if the Lions win the division I have a hard time picking against Dan Campbell, to be honest. 2
Since
years.
We've never won the division since it's been called the NFC North.
Sure. So 2 years, there's been nothing but positive upward trajectory media coverage of Dan Campbell. He seems to be a super likable guy. Seems to be the kind of guy that like players like playing for, media likes being around, ownership likes having in their clubhouse, right?
Yep.
If you combine that with winning, I don't know how, especially because it's the first time in a long time. I don't know how you really say it's not going to be him. I mean, like the only other guy that I would really pick to be in the running would be Sean Payton. If he like took whatever time off, came back, new city, different circumstances, say he wins the division or gets them to the playoffs or something, like could be Sean Payton. But I think that Dan Campbell's story's better, and I think that matters for a lot. So
what about Robert Saleh over with the Jets?
He chose to be
right?
No. Here's my take on Robert Saleh. He chose to be the head coach of the New York Jets. He can go fuck himself. Like I don't care. Like now, to be fair to Robert Saleh, that team has gone. They have pushed their chips in the middle. They are all in on this year or maybe next year. To do what? I don't know. They must be convinced that they're contenders for the Super Bowl. But
they got Aaron Rodgers. They have to be contenders.
I mean, that is the narrative. So I just don't believe that that's what's going to happen. Have a good night, Funky.
See you, Funky.
Enjoy that show.
So Crimson does have a couple other options for comeback player of the year. Russell Wilson.
He
and comeback player of the century, Geno Smith.
No, Geno Smith. Didn't Geno Smith get it last year?
He might have. I don't know.
I think that Russell Wilson certainly could be on the short list there for gets traded, immediately gets the huge extension. Terrible season. Fire the head coach, rookie head coach.
Yep.
Partway through the season or whatever. Unmitigated disaster. No arguments. Get Sean Payton. Try and turn that ship around a little bit. If Sean Payton can... Here's the thing about Russell Wilson. It's not about, I think, redesigning an offense that like lets Russell Wilson do what he's good at, quote unquote. I think that what Russell Wilson was good at in his heyday in Seattle is not achievable for him at this particular age. Russell Wilson likes to throw to the hashes down the field.
Yeah.
Which means you need a lot of like long developing plays. And I just don't know that is in the bag. And like what he would do is he would scramble and get to the like schoolyard playbook type of stuff.
Yeah.
And there'd be like extremely long comeback routes. There would be extremely long like up and outs or whatever. And he would make those throws on the run. Now, we didn't see that last year. They asked him to do something different. Contributed to him not being the same player. I absolutely hate it when some team trades for a guy and then it's like, hey, you're great. You do these things really well. We're going to want you to do this other stuff. That's so dumb.
Here's the thing that's right in your wheelhouse. We're going to put a pin in that for this year, and we're going to try this other thing and see if we can really surprise people.
Hey, Tyreek Hill, you're one of the fastest players in the NFL. We want you to run like 3-yard curls. No, sorry. Like, that's just a poor use of that player. But, like, if Sean Payton can figure out a way to either get Russell Wilson to do something new and different that he might be good at, or how to recreate what Russell Wilson was good at in Seattle, I think that Russell Wilson could be on the comeback player of the year ballot. But, like, he would have to do something significant, I think, to win it. Like, DeMar Hamlin.
Isn't it usually coming back from injury, though? Not from just a shit show of a of performance.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know what the definition of, like what the criteria is for comeback player of the year. I always remember it being somebody that was injured the previous season and came back from the injury, not from just like, oh, I played like absolute dog shit and now I played better this year. That's more of like most improved player, not comeback. But I don't know, maybe. I just don't think that no matter what he does, unless he comes out and outplays Patrick Mahomes, he's not beating Damar Hamlin.
Yeah, I don't think he is either. And to be honest, like I don't really know that I would entertain other candidates. I mean, like you died on the field, basically. Like
Crazy, isn't it?
The fact that you're not dead should mean that you win the award. I mean, it's kind of like winning in and of itself. Like you don't really need the award for, continued living. But like it would be nice if they were just like, we're going to rename this the Damar Hamlin Award because I don't know how you get any closer to being a comeback player than what he's going to end up doing. So, congrats, Damar.
Yeah. So we're going to, if you're cool with it, revisit. We don't have to go through as detailed as we did the first time a couple months ago. But let's talk about our season schedule, where we're thinking like originally, I think I had us at 12 wins. You had us at 11 wins. Let's see what might have changed now that we're starting to have week 1 in 2 days. 48 hours from now, we will be sitting down to watch the Lions take on the Chiefs. So I know originally, I believe both of us picked us to lose week 1. But rosters have been finalized. We've got some injury reports. What are we thinking now for week 1?
I still don't think they win. If I had to put money on it, I would put money on the Chiefs to win at home because they're the Super Bowl champions. They're at home and they have Patrick Mahomes. That's it. Like that's all I really need. But I will say it's gotten closer than I would have thought it would have gotten when we did the previous show. So
you're picking us still for a loss.
Correct.
I think we're still going to lose, but I think it's not going to be a 10-point loss anymore. I think it's going to be
you're going to take the under.
Probably a field goal. It's going to be whoever has the ball last, maybe. Not that it's necessarily going to be like a 45-42 shootout, but I think it's going to come down to the very end of the game. If they've got the ball last, are they kneeling? If we've got the ball last, did we score to go ahead?
Right.
So week 2, Seattle Seahawks at home.
I gotta think this is a win. Although I think Seattle is closer to where Detroit is in this roster rebuild than I think a lot of people would give them credit for being. They have a lot of good players. And the only thing, like what Hatter's doing in the chat right now, like join in, like give us your opinions.
Yeah.
I think it's a win because we're at home.
Yeah, all things being equal, home team tends to get about a field goal advantage on the spread. I think it's a win as well. Week 3 against the Atlanta Falcons, also at home.
Yeah, so I think this is a win because I haven't. So like, it's the argument in reverse for Atlanta than it was for Kansas City. Like I like Kansas City because they have Patrick Mahomes, who I think is better than Jared Goff. But I think Jared Goff's better than Desmond Ridder. And like when you can just load up, I mean, like this is the kind of team that they went out and drafted Broderick Martin and Jack Campbell and Brian Branch to try and stop. Like they got more stout up the middle because I think that Carolina loss last year was demoralizing for them because that was the difference. Yeah, I mean that was the difference. If they had won that game against Carolina, a bad team, like they would have had the tiebreaker with Seattle and gone to the playoffs. Now you can say that for any loss on their schedule, but like they knew then that they had to do it, and they got absolutely rolled.
Yep. I got a win there in Green Bay week 4. It's not cold.
It's not cold.
We're on a 2-game winning streak, maybe even 3 if week 1 doesn't go quite the way we think, and we pull that one out.
I don't remember what I picked last time, but I'm going to go loss here because I think that we split with the Packers this season.
Okay.
And I think that Jordan Love will be a pleasant surprise, maybe not a franchise-changing surprise for the Green Bay Packers, but I don't know that he will be so bad that he's going to make mistakes that's going to cost them the game. And I also think that Rashawn Gary's going to be back, I believe. They still have a very good defense. They're at home. I'm going to give it over under 2.5, and I'm going to go the under. I think it's going to be exceptionally close. So, hey, Brian.
What's up, Brian? I'm going to go with Hatter's house on this one. I think this is going to be a W. I just don't think that the Packers have – they lost Aaron Rodgers. They lost Devontae Adams. I just don't think they've done enough to put the kinds of pieces around Jordan Love. So if he's not a franchise extending, quarterback, I just don't think they're going to have it. So I think we got a W there. I think we'll probably sweep them. Week 5, Carolina, at home again.
Rookie quarterback. Their offensive line has looked absolutely putrid in the preseason. I don't think they have any. They have the ghost of Adam Thielen and like a couple of people at wide receiver. I just don't think this team has the offensive firepower to stick with a team like Detroit, and that's fun to say.
Right. We don't say it very often.
I don't know that. I'm going to disagree with Hatters a little bit here. I don't know that this one is close. This one feels like the Jacksonville game to me. Like I would pick this game like 41-17.
I'm not sure it's going to be that big of a blowout, but I do have I think that we'll win by over 10.
Steak dinner.
Maybe not.
How about this? I'll give you 21.5. I'll say we beat Carolina by more than 3 touchdowns.
That is worth a steak dinner.
Okay. All right. It's on the board.
All right. We'll go to, I don't know, wherever you want to go, Black Rock or
we'll find lots of places to serve steak, right?
Yeah.
Black Rock.
All right. Yeah. All right. So Drew gives me 21 points. Yeah. All right. Making a note of that. Steak dinner. I'll mark it in the chat.
Hatter's going to even keep track of it for us. Hey, dude, if you want the job of bet scribe or whatever, you got it. Keep us on our.
So join the Discord, and then I'll create that predictions channel, and we can throw those predictions in there. We'll pin some of those that actually have hamburger or steak dinners or something. I like it. In Tampa Bay, week 7.
I think
we are either on a 5-game win streak or 2 wins, a loss, 2 wins.
I think Tampa Bay is going to be a bottom 5 team in the NFL this year. I think here's the thing: it has all the trappings, all the markings of a trap game. Yeah. There is a reality where Baker Mayfield just gets hot, and that's all she wrote.
Happened last year after Stafford went down. He came back in and played a couple really strong games
off the fucking plane with 48 hours notice. He did it. There is that could exist. Other than that, the rest of the roster is bad. So
Mike Evans is still there.
Yes, that's true.
That's it.
But I just think that this is the kind of thing you go on the road and you're finally they're the Tampa Bay we kind of remember them being from the previous 3 decades.
Can you please wear your creamsicle uniforms? Because I remember beating the shit out of that team when I was a kid.
Yeah. So I have that as a win.
All right, I must have gotten my my numbers messed up on my notepad doc on the other side here. So week 7,
Not you.
Baltimore.
I'm gonna say this is a loss.
We can't win them all. We're on the road against a strong
Baltimore, team. I respect Baltimore a lot for the way that they manage their franchise, the way they build their roster. I believe in Lamar Jackson a lot more than a lot of other people. And I think that that's the kind of thing that on the road, it's going to take a 66-yard field goal that gets missed this time, right?
Yeah. Hatters wants to beat Baltimore real bad, but he also has that as a loss.
Is there any team that Hatters doesn't want to beat really bad? I mean, like that would be
true.
Yeah.
I mean, I want to beat them all really bad.
Yeah. I mean,
you and I have had this conversation. I enjoy blowouts.
Yeah, you want to
right?
go 17-0? You know, I'm all right with it. Of course, I'm the kind of guy that doesn't want to watch a field goal at the end of the game decide things. I'd rather my team just win by 40 points. Like I'll watch every minute of a 40-point blowout.
Yeah. That's why we schedule those Eastern Carolina teams.
Yeah. Every team in college football does it.
Yep, they do. There's no point in giving away percentage points at the toward the national championship if you don't have to.
Too much at stake. Yeah.
Week 8, Las Vegas Raiders at home in Detroit. And I think they're going to be a mid-tier team, right? They're going to be a 500-ish team, give or take a win. I don't think they're going to be great. They're not going to be bad, but those are the kind of teams that can surprise you because you may be one of those wins. Their wins, your losses.
To me, this comes down to the health of Jimmy Garoppolo, to be honest, more than it should. Jimmy has this thing where he plays something like 10 to 12 games a year. If this is not one of those games, this is an absolute. I mean, they have Aiden O'Connell from Purdue as a rookie backup, and that's just a roll, And I think the only chance they have is if Garoppolo is like totally healthy. I think this is a win. For some reason, I don't like this matchup at home. I don't know why. Because I can't point to anything and says this is what the Las Vegas Raiders really do well.
Yeah.
But it's at home. I don't love Jimmy Garoppolo. I feel about him a lot like I do Jared Goff. But if he's healthy, I'm like, don't overlook this team.
Yeah.
If he's injured, I'd be like, okay, let's get through this into our bye week and get all healed up. So I have this as a win.
Yeah. Hatter brings up that J-Mo will be back. Monday night game, J-Mo will be back.
October 30th, gross.
I think this is going to be a win as well. I don't think that they have a strong enough team, just all-around team to beat us. So I got that win as well. So next up is Los Angeles Chargers in Los Angeles. So we're going to be on the road, SoFi Stadium. Guys, Justin Herbert. The good news is by then our secondary should be. They've got 8 games playing with each other to try to stop that their passing game.
Yeah, I have this as a loss, because if Los Angeles can't win these kinds of non-divisional opponents coming into their house, at this point Brandon Staley's going to get fired, and there's going to be a new regime in Los Angeles. So I think I like Justin Herbert as a quarterback. I think that's a loss. I don't think that.
I think Herbert's a top 5 quarterback.
Yeah, I think that it's close.
His stats, his wins and losses, he hasn't made the playoffs, right? I don't think at all yet. But that's not all just on him. For the same reasons I threw a lot of those arguments out with Stafford, he never won a playoff game. He threw for 4 touchdowns and 350 yards and no picks, and we lost 35-28. That's not on him.
Right.
So some of those kind of things just sucks. But I think he's a top 5 guy. So
Hatters is going to be at that game.
Nice.
Yeah.
You will love that stadium. That thing is fucking gorgeous. Makes Ford Field look like a practice facility. Bears at home, getting back in the division again.
Win. It's the Bears.
Close in on the game right before Thanksgiving.
Yeah, I don't believe any of the Bears hype until I see it. Fuck it. There was the first game was a 1-point win. I think that was in Chicago, and they got rolled when they came to our place at the end of the season. So I think they got better. I don't know that they got better in the right places. So I think that this is a win, and I think it's a pretty.
We also got better too. That's the other problem.
Yeah, I mean, if you're not getting better in the offseason, you did it wrong.
Yeah. Thanksgiving against Green Bay. I think. Yes, I think this might be one of those blowout type of things.
God, I
think
would
we
love
might just.
that.
Yeah, this is our coming out party kind of thing. We are national television again.
Yeah,
we've got at this point 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 or 8 wins depending on week 4. I picked win, but we're either going to be 7-3 or 8-2 at that point, and I think this is going to be the big thing that says we have arrived. So I've got this as a big win.
The only thing I'd be concerned about is that it's 4 days after the previous game, but then we're going to spin that around here in just a second because I think they can go into New Orleans and win on 11 days rest.
I think they could have on a regular week in rotation, just a week's rest.
I think New Orleans is probably a little bit better than I'm giving them credit for, but I also don't think that they can afford to have much go wrong this season. So
they just don't have the depth. That's what you're saying.
And the way that they've kicked the can on their cap management has now led to several seasons where they've lost starters that you just couldn't afford to pay, that kind of thing. And I think that their depth is now a real issue because they haven't drafted well, top to bottom on their rosters.
Yeah, if you're going to fuck over your cap, you might as well at least draft well so it doesn't feel as bad.
Yeah, so I've got this one as a win, I guess.
Same. Chicago, I think we sweep Chicago. I think we sweep Green Bay. We haven't gotten to any Vikings games, so we'll come to that here in a minute.
I agree. I think we'll sweep Chicago.
All right. Denver Broncos. Time to be determined. This might be a flex game. So we will be at home, though. And I just don't have the faith that Denver's going to do anything. I know they got Sean Payton, but until Russell Wilson proves that last year was a fluke and he's back to old Russ who's cooking, I got us winning this one.
Yeah, I think this is a win too, but this is the game on the roster I feel the most confused about. So because I don't know what Denver's going to be. If I look at their roster, I'm like, oh, this is a little bit better team than I thought they were. And then I'm like, oh, but they were a 4-win team last year. And if that's who they are again, then this is walking away easy. And if they get their shit together under Sean Payton, I think oh, I don't know that I really want to play this team at the end of the season.
Yeah. Bless you. I can definitely see this potentially being either a easy win or a 50-50 game.
Yeah.
I've got this as a win because I think even on the 50-50 game, we're going to have at that point another 5 or 6 game winning streak. And it's going to feel like a magical season. I think we've got enough players and coaches on this team that if you get into that, it's a magical season aspect, they're not going to let shit go wrong. I don't think they're just going to go, well, it's a magical season, but, and then we're going to have that last year's game against the Carolina. We should have won, and then we didn't. right? I don't think that's going to happen this year. And then we go into Minnesota on the road, Cowboys on the road, Minnesota at home, which I find really interesting to playing our two division rivals almost back to back at the very end of the season.
They did that with Chicago earlier in the schedule.
It's crazy, isn't it?
Yeah.
So I think that we're going to lose in Minnesota here.
So do I.
And then in Dallas, I think this is going to be a coin flip. I think it comes down to the health of the teams and what the teams are playing for. If we're playing for more than they are, I think we win. If they're playing for more than we are, then I think they win. I just don't know how I put that down on the official prognostication sheet here. So what are your thoughts on Dallas?
I think this is a loss. If this was at home, I think it would be a win. It's in Dallas. I'm going to say it's a loss.
All right, I'll throw that down as a loss. At home against Minnesota, this has to be a win, or we're screwed, having lost our last 3 games going into the playoffs.
Yeah, you certainly wouldn't want that. I have this as a win. So, because it's at home, basically,
Yeah.
And like that first matchup with Minnesota last year, there was a miscommunication that led to a go-ahead touchdown. I think that's going to get handled this year. I think that, Justin Jefferson had like a career day against the Lions, but like we beat them in that one. And I'm like,
yeah,
it's fine as long as, Matella or what's his name? Madison isn't running all over you, and you're throwing to KJ Osborne, and Hockenson's adding, his traditional stuff or whatever. Like Justin Jefferson can have a career day and it not be a back-breaking experience for you.
Yeah.
I like our matchup against the Vikings in both scenarios. I just think the difference is one's at home and one's at their place. So,
yeah. All right. So that is kind of the review. I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 wins. I've got us with 13 wins, and you've got us with 12 wins.
Well, that's one more than I thought previously.
Yeah, I think each of us had bumped up one more. I'm going to throw it in the chat, along with the note that you're giving me 21 points toward a steak dinner bet on week 5, right? Make sure I have it on the right week, Carolina. All right, so it is in the chat for the entirety of the internet and forever in history to see.
Well, there you go.
There we go. There we go. Was there anything else that we wanted to talk about that we didn't get a chance to talk about? I know we've already gone long, but screw it. Who cares? It's fun.
The only other thing I think...
Lions game in 48 hours.
It's true. The only other thing I think is worth mentioning is the Isaiah Buggs situation. So apparently there's something going on here to me. This is what I believe the sequence of events was with Isaiah Buggs. The coaching staff informed him that he would not be playing against Kansas City. He was a healthy scratch. Joey D. Bones. Did Joey get another? Okay.
Only matters Thursday, 1 game at a time.
But Dan Campbell came out and said the only thing that we base these decisions off of is tape. Well, apparently Mosley was limited in practice today, Donkey Kong. So what I imagine that means is that he just took he's not running yet. So, I mean, I don't think he's on the PUP list, so he could come back anytime, but I'm going to guess week 4 would be when I think he actually suits up and goes out on the field. So with Buggs, the Lions tell him, you're not going to play against Kansas City. I think that's very odd, considering that I thought that he was a starter on their 4-man front after the preseason.
Yeah.
So then Campbell comes out and says the only thing we base those decisions on is tape. Bugs goes out into social media, scrubs his social media of Lions, anything references, usually not a good sign. Then comes back
and a very
and says,
cryptic tweet.
right. And then comes back and says, I'm a team guy. I'm here. I'll do whatever the coaches tell me. However, I can help this team win. And that's apparently been it. But that's very odd to me. That seems like a very odd situation. Seems like it came up out of nowhere.
Yeah.
And then got resolved real quickly. This is a player they re-signed in the offseason. Right? Yeah. They re-signed this guy in the offseason. And now they're telling him before week 1, having gone through the preseason, you're a healthy scratch based on tape. If that is the case, why is this guy not cut? Why was he not cut on the cut down?
Well, I think he's good enough to make the 53, but wasn't good enough to make the 48, the game day 48. And I think they're trying to light a fire under his ass. I mean, they basically said, hey, here's the deal. This guy outplayed you, or these guys outplayed you. We know you're better than that, but you need to show us. So I think they're doing it to light a fire under his ass and try to get more out of him than previous. And I also think it helps with the whole accountability side of things, where if you're not playing up to snuff, coach is going to sit you. And this was their way of going, all right, this is how we prove that we're not just saying things when we say you need to earn the field time. You also need to earn just being able to dress. So I think it's kind of that's my guess, is it's kind of a twofold thing. They're trying to light a fire. They're trying to show the players that they mean business when they say your performance, not just on the field, but also on the practice field, and your efforts in the, in the rooms, studying tape and all that, all that stuff goes into, are you going to be playing for us on Sundays or Thursdays or Mondays or Saturdays, apparently. I don't know. That's kind of my thought.
I don't know who's outplaying him. I don't think it's on Wuzurike. I don't think it's Martin. I don't know of any other DTs unless you're going to put Kaminsky in there at DT, and he's a light DT. You're going to put him next to maybe it's Benito Jones.
Probably him and Wuzurike.
To me, this feels like a situation.
Only one of them has to outplay him, right? Because they're only going to dress so money. If he's guy out,
you tell a guy that he doesn't make? If one other guy beats him out, do you tell a guy you're not on the active roster for the week 1 game?
Well, I guess yeah. I have it backwards. All 3 of them have to beat him out. If there's 4 guys, right? He's got to be the odd guy out. He's got to be the least of the group. I had it backwards in my head. I
know they didn't break the bank with re-signing him, but I am hard pressed to think that he's been so bad in the preseason that he warrants not being on the active roster. This feels like something else to me. And
so
okay.
Joey Bones, I think, is kind of getting to what you're feeling right now, maybe.
Right. So, if this is the case and this is an attitude adjustment thing, then why do you re-sign him? You knew who this guy was. He was on your roster all year last year. You're telling me that the attitude so significantly changed from last year to this year that at the end of last year, you're like, we're going to financially commit to having this guy in the team for 2 more years. And then now there's an attitude about it. I have a hard time. Joey could be right. Joey could absolutely be right. But I have a hard time being listen, you're not a $10 million a year player. You're not a high round draft pick. Like, if you're getting this kind of attitude based off of the fact that they want you around on a cuttable deal, then I think they missed on him.
Well, I think it's probably, I think Joey's got the right idea here. There's probably something that happened. What that is, don't know. It could be an attitude adjustment kind of thing. It could be you know what? Hey, we got rules, and you missed a practice, or you showed up late to, the film study 3 times this week, or whatever. It could be something quote unquote small like that, but those things do add up to big things down the road. So you have to go, well, we have rules for a reason. We have expectations for a reason. You didn't meet them. You're not going to dress on Thursday. And then I think it's very likely it's going to be something like those. If it's an attitude adjustment, I don't know. You never know what shit goes on. He could have been right at the borderline of like, do we not? We know what we got, but we think he's close enough. He's not bad enough to warrant not bringing back. And then maybe he flips out or some shit happens or something, and he's now just on the other side of that line. So I think it's tough without knowing literally any details other than coach told me I'm not starting on Thursday. I got cranky, but I'm manning up and I'm going to go back and try to earn my way back to the field, which I think it's great. I think it actually is better. It's been a better resolution than almost any of the other previous social media scrubbings that other players have had. Not many of them would man up and apologize or say, I'm just going to, be a team player. Like, this is not the way most of those go. And I do credit Dan Campbell for the very quick change in kind of the way Bugs has responded.
Yeah, we have different feelings on this. So just leave that there. So
yeah, but it'll be interesting to see what he does and if he's going to be back on the dressing 48 in week 2.
He better be.
I hope so.
Yeah, Joey, I heard that he missed a workout on Saturday too, but I heard it was because of illness. So unless that's a lie to cover his absence, like on the official report or whatever, then I would have expected some beat writer, Risden, Colton Pouncey, somebody to have been like Tim Twentyman to be like, what really happened was this, or whatever. Because like, I know that there's only a certain amount of time and certain things that the media can see at practice during the week. And then they're just like us, they do with better sources. But like, I'd be surprised if it's so insular that they could keep something like this quiet. Yeah, it's all rumor mill stuff. Yeah. 100%. Yeah. So anyways, it was a surprise. I didn't like it. I think Bugs is an asset to have out there. And I'm disappointed that this took place.
Yeah. I think it's about time to go. It's been fun. 48 hours from now, we're going to be rooting on the Lions. I love it. I threw the link to our Discord in there. I did add that predictions channel. So we have that now. So anybody can throw their predictions in there. And then all of the different steak dinners that we are wagering against each other, they'll be in there as well. Anything else before we bounce out, Drew?
Just that I'm excited. I was just talking to you, and are you guys live Thursday for the game? Let me ask you this, Joey. If we were live Thursday for the game, would you watch us? That's the thing.
See you, donkey.
See you, man. Bye, Mark. But like, so like, I know like the Lions UK group does. I put you on my computer. Aw. Yeah. Yeah. Got me
game on the TV, off on the computer. I like it.
It's true. It is fun. Here's what I'll say. Like, I haven't and I don't think that Mike and I have committed to carving out the time in our personal schedules to doing live reaction stuff. Like I do stuff with family on Sundays and I just kind of follow along with the game, and like this being Thursday, like there's a little bit of wiggle room there. It's something that we could discuss for next season.
Yeah, the other challenge for me is I don't have live TV, so I subscribe to NFL Plus, and I tend to watch my games recorded afterwards instead of live.
Yeah, that's true. You're right. I
so-
do the same thing.
I'll go up. I've got a hunting property up north, so I'll go up there and work on the property and mow the lawn, and I'll do all that kind of stuff on a Sunday, and then come back after the game, then pop on and can catch up. And there's no cell service up there, so I don't get spoilers or anything like that. So yeah, I tend to not watch live, but that is something if we wanted to maybe not the Thanksgiving Day game because we're going to be doing family things, as I'm sure most everybody else is. But maybe down the road, if there's a big game where we got some time to think about it and plan for it, we could do something like that.
Yeah, I don't know what YouTube's like policy on like, hey, if you want to live react to stuff, and I'm just on here swearing, like if it's gonna be like if we'll get kicked off or whatever. But
that's what we're doing now, right?
Yeah, that's true.
You haven't been watching your fucking language the whole night.
Exactly. But like we are not getting the kind of like media traffic or whatever that warrants them checking up on us.
That's true. So speaking of that, like, comment, subscribe.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Hit the little bell so you get reminded when we go live. Tell
Joey,
your friends. Join the
I will
Discord.
say we will discuss what you brought up today. I promise. So
yeah, I like the idea.
Yeah, maybe we could do it.
How we would do it logistically.
3 or 4 times a year, or something like that.
Yeah, I really enjoyed the way that we did the draft tonight. So I'm not sure how many people watched live or rewatched it afterwards. That was just a shit ton of fun. Until my son won the last bet.
Okay.
And then it was less fun.
Yeah, it was great. Good job, Danny.
So, all right, we'll see you guys. We'll see you guys next Tuesday after we're hopefully 1-0.
Yep, that would be amazing to talk about. So let's hope for that outcome.
Sounds good. We'll see you guys next Tuesday.